Up to this point, I've been trying to go into what's called energy anatomy and theory, energy anatomy philosophy, mechanics of energy, and even why we can have an expectation to be able to put pressure on the physical body and have a result that might either be spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, organic, neurologic. Why should we even have an expectation of having a predictable outcome? And part of it is because one of the ways that we know that there's always been medicine in the world, I always say it like this, wherever there's been more than two people together in the same time in the same place, one of them was a therapist for the other. Because that's the way it is. In normal life of healthy human nature, in any group of two or more people, there's always one person who's a little bit more knowledgeable and a little bit more responsible and a little bit more willing and open to help the other. That's normal. That's the way we're wired. We're supposed to be like that. And so because that's part of our nature, then that is why there's always been medicine. That's why we say ancient traditions of medicine. Well, it's because it would be an implausibility to consider that there was ever a time or place in the world where there was not medicine. Because we are built for it. Do you understand? We're built for it. It's almost as if we were made to be able to be repaired. That we were not designed with obsolescence in mind. That we were literally from the ground up, that we were built to be repaired, and that the repair manual or repair mechanism is not that hard to find. Literally, it's almost as if it's built into our DNA. That there are certain understandings that if you care to try and help people, you will come to just because you bring energy and attention to it. Now, would it be 100% the same as everybody else? No, that's why there's different systems and cultures of systems and so on. But those are all interpreting, but the fundamentals of what they do, they're the same. They have to be the same. It's just like martial arts. It's like we say there are core techniques in martial art that are common to all martial arts. And if you know them, you know the seed of all martial arts. That was one of the things that Bruce Lee talked about a lot, is the core principles, and once you understand them, you now understand everything from jiu-jitsu to Kalaripayat. You now understand everything about Kali. You now understand the origins of Kung Fu and Shorinji Kempo and Okinawan Shorite and Weiji-Ryu. And you now understand Brazilian Capoeira. And you now understand Sambo. Krav Maga you mentioned the other day. You now understand all of it. Why? Because you got two legs, two arms, one torso, one groin, one throat, one spine, one head, two eyes. It's finite. So the articulation possibilities of giving and receiving pressure are what? It's not infinite. There may be infinite permutations of micro variation. Speed, tempo, torque, weight, etc. Maybe. Circumstance. Like for example, when I trained in Pencak Silat with Pendekar Suyati Jaffrey, okay? And he taught me one of the first lessons in Pencak was as soon as you're in a fight, you sit down on the ground. As soon as you realize you're in a fight, you're being attacked or you have to defend yourself or self-defense, the first thing you do is sit down on the ground. And when he told me that, I was like, what? That doesn't seem very functional. That the first thing, and we're talking hand-to-hand combat, we're not talking about rifles and pistols. We are talking about knives and swords and clubs and sticks and fisticuffs, okay? But so, you know, I'm uppity, and so I asked, why? Pendekar, why? And he looked at me like I was a dummy. He said, because everybody ends up in the dirt, eventually. So you should get there first and make your house. Because everybody else is going to be in the dirt with you in about a minute. On the ground, in the dirt, in the mud. I was like, okay. Actually, having been in a couple of brawly street fights myself, not going to elaborate, it ended up on the pavement with scrape, and I walked away with scrapes from dragging body parts on asphalt. I was like, I could visualize that pretty easy, right? But then he said, it's not what you think. And I go, well, how do you know what I'm thinking? How do you know it's not what I'm thinking, you know? I don't like people to infer that they know what I'm thinking. You know, like what am I, transparent? You know? But he goes, not what you think. And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, at that time, I'd never been to Indonesia. I'd never been to Jakarta or Indonesia at that time. Later, yes, but at that time, no. He goes, in my home, which is north of Jakarta in the mountains, it rains 300 days a year. Everywhere is wet, all the time, and just sometimes it's wetter and it's muddier, and the mud is very much clay, slippery, sticky, slippery. It's something we have to contend with. It's just a way of life, okay? And so if you're going to be in a fight or someone's going to fight you, everybody ends up in the mud because it's slippery. It's slippery. It's muddy. And once you're off the beaten path, quote unquote, jungle, because they have jungle like they think they invented it. They get real smug about their jungle. They're like, no, we invented jungle. You've heard of jungle. Yeah, you've heard of jungle before. Yeah, we invented it. Okay? That's the way they feel about it. Okay? And the thing that's very interesting about real jungle is it's full of vines. It's wet and it's full of vines. And so it's not just that you slip in the mud, but you get tangled up in the vines. And whatever you're doing, you're having to deal with being tangled up in vines and underbrush. And there's no place that's clear that hasn't been cleared. There's no place that's clear that hasn't been cleared. And so all of a sudden, Penchak, which is all this down on the ground, makes perfect sense. If you put that person in a wet, jungle, viney environment. Makes perfect sense. Okay? Here, not so much. It's exercise, at best. Okay? But the technology, the idea of grounding and centering as being a fundamental of martial art that the Penchak, the Indonesian Penchak practitioners emphasize also in their medicine. A very traditional Penchak doctor in Indonesia, okay, Sulawesi, or off the beach in Bali. You go 5 miles from the beach and you go back 100 years in time, and everything's not like Instagram. People still work behind the business end of a water buffalo, and they don't take selfies all day. Okay, so I'm sorry, but bless the hearts of the tourist business. They really need that. So the Indonesian medicine men and women, the first thing they do in every treatment is they ground you. Ground you. Now, in tradition, before they had tables like this, they would put you on the ground, not on a mat. So you'd be in a clinical situation, a treatment, literally like a traditional hospital, and they would have courtyards and areas that are dirty, Like they sweep them and they keep them clean, you know, from leaves and snakes and stuff like that, because a lot of snakes in Indonesia, okay? But you go for a treatment, they put a sari on the ground and put you on top of the sari. And that is for a period of time, because you need to ground in order to be polarity shifted, if you will, to be accessible for the energy medicine, for the healing. Even if it's going to be physical therapy and bone adjusting, the first mechanic is to ground. Because that little shift in polarity opens the doors, we say, to make things easier, right? And also, I hate to say it because I practice indoors like a lot of people all the time, but I was taught in traditional settings that the clinics were always open air, and we were always under either a portico or outside, right? And the teacher, Paul Cruz Samai, would say it, if I were to say, well, why do we have to do therapy and practice outside, on the deck or under the portico, out of the sun? You know, they don't like sunburn more than you do, okay? But it's outside, obviously. It's open, building's open on 3 sides, or you're in a clinic that is missing walls on 2 sides entirely, okay? And everything's done under the roof, but it's missing 2 out of 4 walls. So the air can come and go as it pleases, if you will. Also cats and dogs, okay? And I say, well, why do we have to practice like that? Why can't we be more comfortable? I have a thing about mosquitoes, like, do I have to get bit by mosquitoes to get this treatment? He said, that's not the question. The question is, why do you have to be outside? And he said, because the air's out there. Everything we're doing is about balancing the air, about facilitating the air. Also called prana, also called chi, also called ki, also called huna, also called vril, also called prana, also called. It's the air, and the air is out there. Okay? So the first thing that happens when you ground the client, even on a table, even indoors, see, we still do it. See, we give credit to the process of grounding. Those energies are still available. There's some air in here, obviously, okay? Is that is going to be the medium that all the changes are going to occur in. And that is your primary ambition, is to breathe the person into wellness. Now, yes, I'm going to push and pull with my hands, but the hands are expression of the breath. Remember, microcosmic orbit. That's that breath that's transverse to the macrocosmic orbit, and the hands are the organ of expression of the heart, and the heart is transversing the heavenly breath with the earthly breath, pushing and pulling into the client to have a reciprocity of breathing in the body, in the client's body. Now, you can try to explain that any way that you want to try and explain it. As a neurologic stimulation, as a stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous system, as a awakening of the immune system, intangible immune system. Like most people, like, what the heck is that? I did a video not too long ago where I defended the idea that the immune system is actually the Holy Spirit and does everything that the Bible says the Holy Spirit does inside the body. That is the function of the immune system. That's what it is. And that's why it's intangible. And that's why all the billions of dollars that have been spent trying to define the immune system function entirely, top to bottom, front to back, have so far not been able to do so. Not been able to do so. Because there's a quality about it that is intangible, and which is dramatically there. Obviously, there's an immune system, and obviously it does things. Obviously. But we can't say obviously, scientifically, why or how. There are theories. There are some theories, maybe even some pretty good ones. well, it's a this and a that and a this and a that, and there's a mimetic function, there's a memory function. I'm like, well, how does an intangible response mechanism with infinite permutations have a memory? And where would that memory be stored? And some people say it's stored in the tissue. It's part of the crystalline matrix of all tissue in the body, that's where the potential for infinite memory is. How many terabytes of memory will the calcium and salt crystals in your body be able to store? Terabytes, multi-terabytes, right? But then you have like Dr. Larry Dossey, who says the storage medium for that information that the immune system / integumentary system utilizes is non-local. It's in the cloud. Your immune system function, the memory that is the basis of your immune system function, is in the cloud. And what cloud are they referring to? Are they talking about Amazon, AWS, ALS Weber? Are they talking about the Google cloud, the ALS cloud, the AWS cloud? You know, there's a bunch of clouds, right? What cloud are they talking about? No, the original cloud, the Akashic cloud, the Akashic record. Are you familiar with that concept? Yes? Somebody tell me what they think it is. Akashic. What does that mean? What does it reference?
The record of all things that's held in the ethers.
That's really succinct, and I think I would agree with that. It's a good basic definition. The Akashic record is a function of the Akashic field, which is an actual field of energy around the planet that in which is stored everything that has ever transpired in the history of this planet, which includes you. Everything. Every thought, or as the Tibetans say, every thought, action, and deed is recorded in the Akashic realm, which is a field, an actual field. Think of it as the magnetosphere doppelganger. Picture in your mind the magnetosphere, the Earth's magnetic field that protects it from solar radiation from the sun. It's why we don't turn into a French fry every time we walk outside from solar radiation, because there's plenty of solar radiation. It could do that. There's plenty. Every square inch of the planet is bombarded with enough solar radiation, gamma radiation, hard radiation, to crispy cook every living thing every minute of every day. And the only reason that doesn't happen is because the Earth has a magnetic field that the poles are poles of, positive, negative poles, right? Produces a strong magnetic field which repulses the ionic stream of ions, solar radiation, those are ions, which have a polarity, and bounces them away from the Earth, mostly. Not entirely, but mostly. Just like two magnets with the same pole will repel each other. You know how that works? But if you really try hard, you can still touch them together. If they're small. If they're big, you can't. But let's say you take two positive pole magnets and you feel the pressure, they're pushing each other apart. Okay? But if you put enough pressure on it, you can touch them together. They're not happy about that, but you can do it. So that means that you can overcome the difference in polarity with what? Physical pressure. It's like a lot of times people don't get it. How can I change your polarity with my hands? With physical pressure. Well, pick up two magnets and I'll show you. Have a positive pole in this hand and a positive pole in this hand and try and put them together. Oh, they don't want to go together. Well, push harder. You can overcome that polarity with physical pressure, which is kinetic energy. By the way, that's a Tesla, quote-unquote, patentable idea to be able to invent a thing called an electric generator. Because that's what That's what an electric generator does. It physically imposes magnets with the same polarity against each other, and then as it squeezes them together, they push off and want it to go away. So you make a wheel with magnets on the outside, and you put it in a circle with magnets on the inside with the same polarity. Like a lot of people think the magnets have alternate polarity. They don't. Okay? The trick is they have. And that's why engines have to have starters. So big electric motors have to have a starter, because it left to themselves, nothing happens. You got to start that wheel spinning, and then once you turn it, the push and pull, the physical pressure against the magnets will drive the wheel to go faster and faster. And then the limit of that is the friction on the bearings of the engine, right? And the size of the wheel, right? Well, so the same people who will tell me I can't affect energy or polarity with my hands will turn on the lights in their house or drive their car with an alternator, not realizing that the electricity that's driving their appliance is created physically through physical pressure, an exchange of physical pressure, changing the relationship of magnetic ion charged particles. Okay, but that's the magnetosphere, and it's this envelope with a tail. It's kind of cool. Looks very sperm-like. Okay? Interesting. Does sperm have polarity? Yes, it does. It's how it works. What makes it work? So magnetosphere is important for us as a planet, because aside from if you believe in flat Earth theory, which would be an alternate theory, the magnetosphere is part of what drives the Earth around the sun in its orbit. And that we have a dominant magnetic field on one side of the planet, and we have an alternate, lesser magnetic field on the other, and that creates in the slipstream ionic environment of the solar system a push and pull. That's the engine that drives the planet around the sun. It's not just passive. Even our Earth conforms to these principles. And so does every cell in your body. Okay?
Could it also, I'm sorry, in the flat Earth, could it also be the firmament?
Yes. That would be the equivalent.
The magnetic field.
Yeah, that would be the equivalent. And I'm still okay with the biblical cosmology of Sheol and the firmament and all that as having polarity. See, it's not a problem for me to say, oh, well, the firmament has a polarity, and the land has a polarity, and the Sheol and the underworld has a polarity, right? Well, it's got to be three, right? See, right there on the biblical model of cosmology, I see the law of three, right there. We got the above, we got the middle, and we got the below. And there's a push and pull relationship between the above and the below. And where we are, which is called the world, is the intermediary between those energies. Oh, it works for me. I don't have a problem with that. I know it's wacky Bible stuff, but I don't have a problem with that. You know, I like the visualization of a solar system personally, and I like to talk about it. It explains a lot of things to me. It makes very good sense to me, but not necessarily the way that astronomers would portray the world or solar system. I think there are other ideas that still give us a solar system and a body of a solar system that will reconcile that biblical cosmology too. Because then also I have to reconcile that in the physical body also, because that's that Hermetic idea, as above, so below. So what is the firmament in your body, right? What is the world of your body? What is the underworld or the Sheol of your body? Right? And so what we have is we have inner, outer, and secret. So we have outer first, which is what you can see, what everybody can see about you from across the street, from down the road, and know to be true about you. That's outer. Okay? And then we have inner, which is only available through introspection and assessment. And that's the parts of you and the things about you that maybe you know, but nobody else knows unless they ask. That's assessment is asking. Okay? So there are things that I can look at you and I can know a lot about you just because of you. You're in that space and you're inhabiting it, you're taking up it in a very particular way. And that way means something. It means something. And if you have training in this, then you can actually make an assessment based on what you see, and that's called direct observation. It's a fundamental skill of Ayurvedic physicians and of Chinese medicine doctors, is assessment by observation. Okay, direct observation. Okay, and then we go into other kinds of assessment, taking the pulse, Nadia Vignan, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's outer. Then we have inner. Inner is, there are things about you that no matter how I look, I might suspect, but I can't confirm unless I ask you, or I do an investment that circumvents your ability to talk to me or communicate to me. And that's like a blood test. See, a blood test will tell me something about you that I can't learn any other way. And it may confirm or not confirm something that I feel as a direct observation. In other words, I might have an idea about something going on with you from direct observation, but as soon as I do a blood test, I learn, oh, well, I think that maybe that's not it, something else. Because there's something in the blood test that I can't see. Okay? That's inner. That's inner. Or a urine test. 10-step urine test. Because I can't look at you and directly confirm your pH. I can't look at you and I can say I see symptoms of imbalance in pH, like thinning hair, like blotched or mottled complexion, like swollen joints and arthritis. Those symptoms of acidosis. So I can see those, but I can't determine that you're acidic without giving you a pH test. And how do I do that? With urine and spit. I collect a urine sample, I collect your spit, and I test it. And then that tells me if you have acidosis or not. That's inner. But you may or may not suspect that you're acidic, but you may or may not share that. And maybe you don't know yourself what the symptoms of acidosis are, and you don't know, for example, that your chronic urinary or your chronic candida infection are actually symptoms of acidosis. Maybe you don't know that. So you're not going to see that in yourself. You're going to know that you have the UTI problem. You're going to know that you have the candida problem. You're going to know that. But you may not know that that is a symptom of acidosis. Okay? I know it, so I'll help you out with that. Right? By what? Giving you a pH test. Okay? An objective test. Third party. And it will confirm or deny the acid observation. Right? And then we have secret. And that is what you don't know, maybe you don't even suspect is wrong with you. And I don't know, and I can't see what's wrong with you until I test, and then maybe both of us learn something new. Because that's completely hidden. And that's in the realm of medicine with the undiagnosable condition, or the person who's chronically not well and sees 100 doctors and nobody ever can actually define accurately what's not right about them, although they know they're not right. And eventually what happens in the Western medical system is you will be referred for psychological counseling. Because science says it has to be weighed and measured to be defined. And if you have a condition that cannot be weighed or measured, which cannot be defined scientifically, it must be all in your head, which is another way of saying imaginary. Your illness is an imaginary friend or foe. Your illness is a giant rabbit that follows you everywhere that nobody else can see. That's your illness. And so to treat you in modern psychiatry, they will pretend to see your rabbit. In other words, the primary counseling methodology right now is to affirm the imbalance, which means you say there's a giant rabbit that follows you everywhere, and occasionally is an angry rabbit and sticks you with a knife or a pin or a thorn, and that's why you have a pain in your side. And they've done all the MRIs and the x-rays and the organs and the blood test and the urine test, and there's nothing wrong with you. And then when the doctor tells you that, you turn to your left to your giant talking rabbit, and you go, "Told you so. I told you so. Stop it." So they're going to refer you for psychological counseling, and right now the state of the art to treat that would be to give you a mood elevator or suppressant, a drug, because that's what's in the Red Book. Give you a drug, hallucinations, because now your disease vector is hallucination, which is a mental illness. So you get a drug, and then in counseling you get affirmation that really, in fact, there is a giant rabbit that sticks you in the side with a sharp thing, and that's why you have pain in your side, even though nobody else can see the giant rabbit. Perfectly ridiculous. Perfectly ridiculous. But that's secret, okay? Traditional medicine has technology, which is, you would say it technique or protocol, technology, to discern secret sources of imbalance. To discern. Now, some of the tools that we might use are, again, history and experience. Oh, I've met other people who thought there was a giant rabbit who stuck them in the side with a sharp pointy thing, and they had a mineral deficiency in trace minerals. Not enough chromium and gallium, which causes a certain aberration of mentation, and in extreme cases can cause hallucinogenic experiences. So I supplement them with chromium and gallium, okay? And the hallucinations dissipate, they go away. And the pain associated with that also goes away, okay? Another way is we could douse for it. We could use a pendulum, and you can douse without an artifact. In other words, you can use a stick to douse, you can use a twig to douse, you can douse with a pendulum, you can use a piece of glass, a flat piece of glass or a rock with a polished surface that is tacky, like if you run your finger over it, it's smooth until it's not. Okay? That's called sticky pad assessment for radionics. So we have tools to discern the secret part. The observation part, the outer part, we use trained observation and postural analysis, color analysis, tone analysis. Like in Ayurveda, for example, if your client talks too fast, that's an indication of dosha imbalance. If your client talks too slow, that's an indication of dosha imbalance. If your client talks too soft, that's an indication of dosha imbalance. If your client talks too loud, that's an indication of dosha imbalance. If your client stutters but has no mechanical defect in their mouth, that's an indication of dosha imbalance. So the way that you treat that is by balancing the dosha that's in balance. And then the way you'll know if it's working or not, they will stop stuttering. Or the fast talker will speak slower, or the slow talker will speak faster, or the loud talker will have a volume control, or the soft talker will speak up, if you're successful in balancing the dosha that's causing it, right? But boy, that's intangible, isn't it? But yet we have a very concrete way to do that, Okay? In a very concrete way. And I'm going to go more into that also. But then also looking at the mechanical body. So just purely from the most simple observation, looking and also feeling your client or moving their body parts is part of looking at the client. In other words, I learn things about you just by trying to move you, to lift your hand or move your foot or roll your leg or fold or bend or spindle or, have you turn your head. Or that is telling me about the inner and secret. And it's also helping me define your outer imbalance. Like you said, well, I have a bum knee. I'm like, okay, and you kind of look gimpy when you walk. It looks like you have a bum knee. So that's outer, right? I can see what looks like your imbalance. You say you can feel and see your imbalance. And then when I start moving you, a broke-ass knee feels different from a healthy knee. It feels different. It bends different. It articulates different. The person with a damaged knee reacts to pressure differently than a person who does not have a damaged knee. And it's predictable as rain. We know what those responses are. The defensive reflex, the flinch response, the cringe response, shortening in the tissues above and below the knee, exclamation of pain, ouch, ouch. The person with the healthy knee, every time I go to move their leg, doesn't go, ouch. That's an observable phenomenon, right? So I'm looking at you, looks like a bum knee. I'm start moving you, and it moves like a bum knee. And when you say, hey, quit that, ouch, I don't like that, that hurts, sounds like a bum knee, leading me to think there might be a bum knee. So already energetically, I know a couple of things. Polarity-wise, I have to bring energy, attention, consciousness, breath, and pressure above and below the knee. That's that triad of the knee. So I have to open up the channels above the knee. I have to open up the channels below the knee. And I do that with direct physical pressure. And by modeling healthy alignments. Modeling healthy alignments. That's what yoga therapy is. It's a system of modeling healthy alignments. In other words, all the yoga postures, to some degree or another, a healthy person is supposed to be able to do all of them without ever having taken a yoga class. In other words, everybody's supposed to be able to bend their knees. Everybody is supposed to be able to flex their toes. Everybody is supposed to be able to bend forward, bend backwards, and rotate to the left or right. Everybody's supposed to be able to wave their arms around like a chicken. Everybody is supposed to be able to turn their head left and right. Everybody is supposed to be able to look up or down. Everybody is supposed to be able to kneel, to sit, to lunge, and to walk. Everybody is supposed to be able to stand. Do you understand that? Direct observation very quickly tells me which of these everybody things are not working for you, or to some degree, right? To some degree. You can bend, but not very well. You can twist, but I don't want to do it. Do I have to? You can bend the knee, but do I have to? Because it hurts. You can walk up the stairs, but do I have to? You can walk down the stairs, but do I have to? Give me a hand when I stand up, because I need one. Help me get down, because the floor seems awful far away right now. Right? Introduce me to my toes, because we don't speak anymore. You know, when you were a baby, the habitat of your toes was the inside of your mouth. What's any young child, any newborn, any baby? It's like, they get born, you know, and they're happy. And then the first thing they do is grab a foot and shove it in their mouth. You can't hardly have a conversation with them because they got a foot in their mouth. Now, in the babies, it's cute. When you're 40 years old, not so cute. Foot in your mouth. So, and that's what we mean by that, by the way. Looks cute on the baby, not so cute on the 50-year-old. Okay? But the thing about it is you had a relationship with your feet and you had a relationship with your toes, and part of the internal mechanism of stimulation of growth and consciousness in the baby is chewing on those acupoints, those reflex points that are in the toes, and stimulating the reflex points that are in the toes. All healthy children do that. If you have a child who does not do that, there's something wrong with them. It's necessary. Well, it actually never goes away. So if you're a 50-year-old and you no longer occasionally have conversation with your toes, that's a problem, because they're not getting a certain level of stimulation that they need. And there's the value in doing reflexology. Because for most adults, that energy and attention you're bringing to the foot and the toes is deficient. And they need that stimulation. And initially, it might even seem like overstimulation. I don't like people to touch my feet. Why is that? They're sensitive. Why is that? Because something's wrong with you. That's why your feet are sensitive. And that's what that means, by the way. It's not a personal preference, right? That preference is just reflective of a sensitivity, which is a symptom of an imbalance. Okay? And so we learn these things over time, and then we bring them to bear. So physical pressure is in fact the easiest, fastest, most bang for your buck way to get access to all these symptoms of interconnected systems of mind, body, and spirit. And so that's why we do it. And because we're smart. And so we want to do the easiest, simplest, most direct way to get the result that we want to get. And so when you have therapists and doctors and healers and so on who don't lay hands on people, they are missing the boat. From a traditional perspective, they're missing the boat. I don't care what your specialty is. Oh, I'm a neurologist. Okay, well, what is your acumen in acupuncture, acupressure, or reflexology? Or marmasakitsa? Well, I don't even know what those things are. I heard of reflexology. Well, okay, well, let me say it another way. Your neurologic patients, how much, how often, how frequently, and how thoroughly do you give them a squeeze? Well, never. And I'm like, why do you not touch your clients? And they would say, their answer to me, by the way, it's a real conversation. This is not a made-up conversation. I asked the neurologist why she never laid hands on her clients. Never. In 30 years of institutional practice at one of the largest neurologic treatment and schools in the United States, at Rush Presbyterian in Chicago. She was one of my clients. And I asked her why she never touched the patient. And she looked me right in the eye and go, why would I? You can't touch a nerve. I mean, metaphorically, you can touch a nerve. But you can't lay hands on the brain, and you can't touch a nerve, and you can't handle the spinal column. So why would I? And I go, there's the problem right there. See, that's style prejudice. That's what I was talking about earlier. That's a prejudice of style. She doesn't even see that the parts are connected. And she's a PhD surgeon, neurosurgeon, world famous, wrote papers, and she's published in textbooks, and she never laid a hand on a patient. And I called her bullshit. I said, learned madam, you are perfectly ignorant. There are things that are perfectly appropriate and which are related to the issues that you deal with every day that are perfectly invisible to you because of your prejudice. And I said, I'm both privileged and horrified to be the person to tell you this, because you're probably not going to come back and you're going to be hateful and you're going to call me names after you leave, or you're going to get it after some cogitation and you're going to be grateful. And you're going to come up with a way to correct your practice to be more holistic. Because she called herself a holistic neurologist, if you can believe the thing. It's like a holistic cardiologist who doesn't touch their patients, or holistic dentist who doesn't touch their patients, touch their teeth but not their patients, or a holistic neurologist, or a holistic, just name it, medical specialty. And if you ask them, well, how much time do you spend hands-on giving your clients a push, pull, or squeeze? And they'll look at you like you're bleeding crazy, because they don't think there's a connection, because that's the prejudice of their education. And they believe what they were taught. Okay? So I forgive them. I have great humility in regard to this. The fact that I know it and they don't is not reason for me to celebrate and have some excess over them. It really calls for me to be humble in the sense of, how do they not know this? How do they not know this? Like, for example, I'm Native American medicine elder. It bothers me to no end, and I work on it. I tap on it. Here's what I tap on. I'm doing a sweat lodge. We're doing a ceremony. We're doing a pipe ceremony. And I make reference to the 4 directions. And everybody's nodding their head. The 4 directions. And I go, quick, don't think, point to north. Nobody knows where north is. I go, or I'll go, quick, don't think, point to south. Well, they do a Katenji Brown. Well, I'm not a map maker with a compass, so I don't know where south is. I'm not a cartographer, so I don't know where south is.
Always find joy in the smallest of things. That is what we found in you. Oh, 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 you are joy. Never give up when the going gets rough. Hope is everything you need. Oh, 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 you are hope. Oh, 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 you are hope. Don't forget you're not alone. The Holy Spirit wants to guide you.